So everyone's going to get mad because you're not allowed to talk about AEW in a positive sense in 2024, at least the end of 2024, without people getting annoyed. And just to try and get in front of the comments, yes, I know attendances aren't where they need to be and the product isn't hot or whatever you want to say. That's just not how I watch pro wrestling. And you can get mad at that. I still think you're allowed to have a conversation about that and look at what it was and what it is now and make comparisons. But at the same time, I think you should always judge an entertainment show, which is what pro wrestling is, based on the content they gave you on the last show. Because, I mean, sometimes it can vary wildly, be that Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, or whatever. And that's why I wanted to tap into what Dynamite did last night, as I am recording that. Because, listen, there are a lot of things that confuse me, but there are also a lot of things that are pretty damn good. So mostly I'm going to use this to shout out things that people do not shout about enough, starting with Harley Cameron. I am such a huge fan of Harley Cameron. And if we were going to start running down our 2024 most improved list or most surprising list or didn't see that coming list, I think she'd probably be number one in every single one. Now, in terms of her matches, they're perfectly fine. They're okay. She hasn't had that many matches. So actually, when you sort of pull that into the mix, she's pretty damn good because I don't know how long she has been wrestling, but doing it on a national television stage or international really adds a lot more pressure to it. But it's the character of Harley Cameron, right? And I think this is something that just seems to escape a lot of people nowadays. I'm just going to compare it to Will Ospreay because I think Will Ospreay is a generational talent who did usher in this whole new style that only a few people are ever going to do, but everyone else is always going to try and copy it again because he is so good. Do I want that kind of professional wrestling in my life? Of course I do. At the same time, do I want dumb characters? Yes. Do I want what people dub WWE style? Yes. It's why you get some commentators, and again, anyone's allowed an opinion. It doesn't really matter what your background or thoughts are. But some people go, we'll just use Japan, right? Because that's the stereotypical one. Well, I mean, Japan has the best wrestling, and nothing can come close to Japan. Yeah, for you. That's your opinion. If you want to walk in here right now and say that Cody Rhodes puts on the best matches for you, then he does. If you want to walk in here and tell me that, I don't know, Yokozuna. Actually, Yokozuna was brilliant. You see what I'm saying, though, right? I'm going to bring the big boss man into this, Ray Traylor. That is a guy who was so good at the start of the day. He was like 6'6", but moved around like he was a swan. And we don't talk about him enough at all. So somebody like Harley Cameron, for example, last night, I think it's the first time she's been on Dynamite in a while. I'd have to imagine it was the Saraya stuff before that, but she gets on Collision all the time, right? She cuts these unhinged, mad promos. When she took on Thunder Rosa recently, she painted her face like a cat or whatever it was. You should go watch Thunder Rosa versus Harley Cameron from that Collision, by the way. That was a great match. We should have used that to sort of send both people off in a brand new direction. But from nowhere, Mina Shirakawa is back in AEW. She's going to have a champagne celebration when Harley Cameron turns up and makes it about boobs. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it was the way that they did it. There was something else she did too. I can't remember what it was now. I should have rewatched the promo before I did it. But it's just a line she threw in there. She said something like, "It's me, Harley Cameron." And Renee went, "Watch," but never mind. It was the delivery of it. Just nuts. And listen, people always go, "Oh, that's only going to get you so far." BS, man. In a show that goes for 2 hours and runs every single week for 52 weeks a year, I need that respite. I need that laughter. And if the idea of Dynamite is to get you to watch Collision and vice versa, absolutely I'm going to watch Miyu Shirakawa versus Harley Cameron because I think it may be hilarious. Also, Shirakawa is really good, right? She knows what she's doing. Harley Cameron is improving. So while they're doing all the fun and shenanigan stuff outside of it, I think when you get into that match, it can actually be pretty damn good and surprise some people. I mean, the wiggling and the jiggling that they did at the end, it was funny. And watching Renee Paquette try not to break, because I imagine she didn't know what was coming, that's just fantastic stuff. And I don't think anyone's going to be talking about that today. I mean, there will be sort of section of the internet that does, and it'll be shared around. Bless the people that always send me this goofy wrestling stuff because they know how much I like it. But I'm not going to say that WWE wouldn't do that, or that TNA wouldn't do that, or that New Japan, whatever. Pick your promotion of choice. But it's one of these things I just think gets overlooked all of the time. I'm so happy that we got that. And then it went right into Swerve Strickland versus Lio Rush, which was such a good match and felt of itself. Is that the right word? I don't know. But maybe, apart from the independent scene, maybe they wouldn't have been able to do that on television anywhere else. I love the contrast to it. And just to give you some balance and some parity, Adam Cole, I'm such a huge fan of. MJF, I think, is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Adam Cole is too. But I think these are proper superstars in the world of wrestling. Their story is confusing and weird, and I don't understand why we're doing Roderick Strong versus MJF at the pay-per-view, when for 2 years we've been waiting for Adam Cole versus MJF, and now we're going to have to wait a bit longer. So this isn't me just blowing smoke up people's ass for being positive for the sake of positive. Like, I am able to see things that don't necessarily work for me. But, well, everyone is just going to be talking about, oh, not many people went, or we're not doing very good numbers here. we forget about the entertaining stuff that we are bringing out of this. Like the Hurt Syndicate finally are getting a proper run. Because if we're being honest, anything that happened in the pandemic didn't really happen. It was like a ghost. AEW has given them a platform. Swerve versus Bobby Lashley, as far as I'm concerned, is one of my most anticipated matches of that pay-per-view, no matter what else they do. Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, they're tying into sort of like real personal stakes. And Will Ospreay uses every single one of these segments, I guess, to prove that if you need him to cut weekly American promos, he can. And that what I'm learning about him especially is if you give him something he can buy into emotionally, the dude goes off. Both of them were saying things here, and I was like, I believe every single word you're saying. That's all a promo needs to be, right? I mean, is it going to talk people into the buildings? I don't know, but that almost feels like an antiquated terms at many times. But you know they're going to have an amazing match, and in terms of that one, it does have the wrestling secret sauce where Kyle Fletcher can't lose. He just turned heel, and you know my opinion on that. If you go bad guy and lose your first match, you're a goober, man. What did you actually achieve? Whereas, well, Ospreay shouldn't lose, because actually if you go through his win-loss record, he has been losing quite a lot. So I think we're going to come up with something really, really interesting here. And again, I'll keep jumping around as well. The Britt Baker versus Penelope Ford match. Penelope Ford was away for so long, has come back and gone, I'm really good, maybe you should do something with me. Something, I don't want to say seems to be off with Britt Baker because she's come back from a lot of health conditions. So, I don't want to start speculating in that regard. But right now, both of those people and just Serena Deeb walking out afterwards, we need more depth. We need more storylines for me. Right? But that may be enough for you. So I just want to make it very clear that I'm not saying that Dynamite doesn't have, or AEW in general doesn't have stuff that they can look at. But we are overlooking so many other good stuff. Let's go to the main event, right? FTR versus the House of Black, or the Knights of the Black Throne, whatever they call themselves. I don't think you could have asked for a better tag team match in the main event. I mean, they both have their own unique styles, but they all gelled together and they all understood their role, right? So Cash and Dax, like the old school tag team, obviously, they're always working together. Brody King is just a wrecking machine, and Malachi Black just has something special about him. It was great that he was able to come back from retirement so quickly. That was so ridiculous the way people reacted to that. But it had stakes too, because even though the random four-way has come out of nowhere for the tag team titles at Full Gear, these were two people that I was like, well, actually, I don't mind who wins and who loses because I'm so invested in both of you. But they just fought like there was something on the line. They come up with some amazing stuff. By the time Brody King's doing the big dive at the end, just excellent. And obviously, FTR, the Shat Machine, they were going to win, but then we get the breakup, and eventually, you get the finish with the House of Black winning. I just think I love the way that Brody King did it too. He pinned him. He couldn't do it. Fine, I'll just choke you to death. I don't want to say it felt like traditional wrestling because that's not fair, but it certainly offered me something that maybe I haven't gotten elsewhere this week, and that made me happy. Which is also kind of the same for, well, actually, before I move on, the Outrunners winning on Collision was the greatest thing ever. And again, I don't believe the Outrunners would have been able to be showcased anywhere else, so keep giving them to me. They could be my favorite act in the world. But you also had that opening tag match when you have Christian Cage and Hangman Adam Page teaming together, and AEW did great with that because they mentioned, well, those two guys don't like each other, but they hate the Bang Bang Gang even more. And sure, you knew that Juice Robinson was probably going to take the pin because he's not in a program right now, but we continue to tease what's going to happen between Hangman and Jay White. And for whatever reason, to me, again, I'm going to rephrase that, it feels like a original AEW feud, right? I guess because even though I do associate Jay White with New Japan because he had an amazing run out there, and a part of me does sort of still see Hangman Adam Page in Ring of Honor, just because that's when I was first introduced to him. Over the last maybe 2 years, they've really established themselves as AEW guys that at one point could be the guy as and when the opportunity presents itself. So that being the match that we're going into at the pay-per-view 2, I'm totally cool with it and I'm excited about it. And I think it's awesome and I want to see where it's going to go. And Christian Cage is just a treat. And Christian Cage will actually always tie into the secret source of AEW. WWE, maybe nowadays they would have done, but we have to go with the eras that they were presented in. The Vince McMahon era of WWE. Well, one, the rumors and stories are all out there. Vince McMahon just didn't like Christian for some reason and wanted to put a blue dot on his face. Again, Google it. Sounds legitimate to me. Could have been one of the most wasted talents of all time if it wasn't for this run that he got in AEW, where finally we were able to go, man, this guy's ridiculous. He's one of the best heels ever. And in 2024, 25, I did a video on this recently. I think Christian Cage is actually going to win the World Championship in 2025. He may even take it off Darby Allin when he cashes in his contract. I think he's going to hold it for like 3 seconds and Will Ospreay's going to beat him. Again, wait for that video to come out and then he'll probably go and team with Adam Copeland. That's the point here. But you would never have got him on the platform that he does deserve. And if nothing else, just for opportunities and getting to highlight your name, I'm just happy that AEW exists. And again, I just want to make it clear because people always go, oh, you're just talking, you never look at the negatives. It's not true, man. Of course, there's negatives to get into. But when I was done with that show last night, I think there was a time when, for me, I don't know, AEW was just hitting on all cylinders. And we're not really in that phase at the moment. But again, if you're doing 52 shows a year, plus more with Collision, Rampage, and whatever else we're going to do, you can't keep the quality high all the time. It's impossible, not just for AEW, for anything that exists on life. I mean, even football or soccer, the Premier League, sometimes you get good games, sometimes you get bad games, because it's the law of averages. And there are certainly elements, like I say, that we probably do need to sit down and, I mean, again, during that Will Ospreay and Carl Fletcher promo, Will was like, you've never done anything outside of the tag team division. He was the Ring of Honor TV champion. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's not as important belt as other ones, but we're trying to push Ring of Honor at the moment, so you probably shouldn't poo-poo over that. And we've talked about the MJF stuff, but I just think eventually they will figure out a way to get over some of these cracks. And if nothing else, the pay-per-views are always an absolute blast. Once again, they're too long for my personal taste. I'd try and cut out 2 or 3 matches. But you still get bang for your buck, no pun intended. And we are on the cusp of Kenny Omega coming back as well. And while Kenny Omega probably would have gone to WWE eventually, especially the time that he would have gone, you wouldn't have got the Kenny Omega that we know and love, because the Kenny Omega we know and love is a creative machine that comes up with his own ideas and is almost like his own what's the word? Kenny Omega just exists on his own plane when it comes to wrestlers, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I put him in he's first, obviously, but he's kind of in that Will Ospreay guys. You're like, man, there's never going to be anybody else like you, because you just view wrestling in such an incredible way. But I just thought it was a good show last night, even despite its negatives, and I'm glad it's there. And of all the things, it was the Harley Cameron segment that made me go, thank goodness this ridiculous, stupid program exists, just so I can enjoy myself and just so I can put a smile on my face. And then that's when the Hurt Syndicate were there too, and I was like, oh man, it's just tying into my thoughts right now. Without Dynamite existing, I probably would never have got that again either. And especially when we came out of the pandemic and we had the whole Vince McMahon Triple H power struggle going on, it felt like MVP and the boys were going to be back, and then they weren't. And I think we should add people to this too, and we should add, I mean, don't make it like NWO size, but I think you can now expand on it and evolve it. And that's another one. Who the flub wins between Bobby Lashley and Swerve Strickland? And that should always be the way that you come up with a match, well, 9 times out of 10. And it doesn't matter who loses either. Like, it shouldn't hurt either of them as long as you put the thought and the time into it, because you don't need shenanigans and nonsense constantly. But I mean, sure, less people are watching Collision, less people are watching Rampage, but the show as a whole was always going to be better when you are just focusing on one program, because that, again, would be the same with anything. The more you get, the less you feel you have to watch. I used to live in Bournemouth, and did I ever used to go to the beach? No, because it was right there and there was no need. So I just think sometimes people are too harsh on AEW, although actually I'm going to rephrase that. You're allowed to be too harsh on AEW, but the sentiment that I struggle with is that we all have to wait it, and every single thing is crap, and it's a dead product, and if you like it, you're an absolute idiot. Well, you're not. And I genuinely watched last night's show, and I was like, okay, I'm going to watch this as, what's the word I'm looking for? As balanced. I've said it once, I'll say it twice. As balanced as I possibly can. Again, no bias, no good, no bad. I'm just going to watch it, and I'm going to take it in as it is. I thought it was good, apart from, and again, the John Moxley thing, we probably shouldn't have sold it as taking over the Superstation, and he just cuts a promo. And yes, there was definitely an issue with the fans last night, not from the ones that were there, but because we were in a big building and we didn't sell that many seats, it did feel a bit quiet. And that is going to affect your entertainment when you are at home, because the atmosphere can travel through the screen, and it hits you right in the tum-tum. But there's positives there too. I want to see Orange Cassidy versus John Moxley. I love the fact that Orange Cassidy mentioned he's beat John Moxley before. Moxley, after hearing his interview that he did with whoever it was in the middle of the week, truly believes in this. So rather than go, oh, it's not working, it's crap, nobody cares, you have to give these things time. It's what we used to get mad about with old school WWE. You try to get something over in 3 weeks, and then you just kill it because the fans haven't bought. Now, I understand it's probably been 6 weeks, maybe not that long, but it has been a substantial amount of time, but you've got to see it through to the end of the year. And if it's not working by then, again, going to the words that John Moxley said, I totally believe they'll pivot and they will come up with something new. But we have a plan here. If it does end with Darby Allin becoming the world champion, and he's being pushed really well, I think there is something to that, because if you're trying to appeal to a younger demographic, Darby Allin does tick a lot of those boxes. So we're going for the long game now, as opposed to let's change things up every single week, which is what a lot of people were asking. And again, that doesn't mean you sit down and go, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. But people don't even acknowledge that. And a lot of people jump on the hate train just because, well, why not? That's what we're going to do. It's fake yelling on the social media, and sometimes it irks me. But at the same time, I like to take people's opinions in and make sure I'm not being swayed by them, which is why I went through Dynamite last week, and I came away, it was a net positive. And I think that wrestling is much better because AEW exists. The two most important things to happen to wrestling over the last 5 years are Triple H taking over WWE and AEW giving birth to Tony Khan. The way around, Tony Khan giving birth to AEW. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but those two events happening have made wrestling more fun, more entertaining, and right now I may be enjoying it more than ever. And that's not a knock or a secret attack on anybody or anything else. That's just how I feel. So even if every now and then we do get a bad storyline or somebody drops the ball or something doesn't click, I think overall we're living in the good times, and I just wanted to make a video about that. So I shall give you a salute and ask you to comment below and let me know that I'm an idiot. It's always good to know. Keep me on feet on the ground. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the bell, ding ding. Make sure you get notified everywhere. Click the video on the screen, which is me talking about wrestling. Please also go to GorillaMind.com/Simon. You can get 10% off. Every single dollar you spend at the moment gets you a coupon to go into a competition to win a damn car, $100,000. So you may as well do it. Plus my code will get you money off. Patreon.com/Simon316 and Go Fitness if you want to sign up to that. You can use the code Simon20. Come give me a follow on all social media and that new one, Blue Sky, whatever it is. Again, Simon316 is an embarrassing name, but we're there now. Simon Miller on Cameo, Simon J. Miller on TikTok, and ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller. Get my brand new Proteus Champion tee because I'm very proud of that. Otherwise, appreciate you, my friends. See you soon.